Welcome to Guitar Gavel, a place for people who love guitars. These are conversations with musicians, guitar enthusiasts, techs, and collectors about their guitar journey and their love of the instrument. Thanks for tuning in. Please hit the subscribe button, share with your friends, and be sure to sign up for our twice weekly newsletter at guitargavel.com. Hey everybody, welcome back. I'm David Still, host of the Guitar Gavel podcast. Joined once again for part 3 of our series with Brian Stoltz and his new album out, New World Rising, on April 2nd. Every Friday for the last few weeks, he's been dropping a single leading up to the release on April the 2nd. We're going to go through the album, talk about the tracks, talk about what we're hearing and the impact and the meaning of the song. So that's what we're here to do today. Any of the biographical stuff on Brian, we would encourage you to go back and listen to the other two podcasts because we covered a lot. So Brian, thanks for being here, man. It's good to see you again, brother.
Hey, David, thanks for having me. Good to be here.
You are welcome. And Brian has joined us. You're in the Sweet Make studio, right?
Yeah.
Right now. That's where the album was recorded, in Slidell, Louisiana. And the magic is around Brian right now, and we're gonna hear all about it. So, then we'll kind of jump right in. You know, earlier on in our conversations, we talked about this album, what the length of time involved in some of the songs that you've had in your mind, written for a while, and now just having a chance to put them all together. So some of that biographical information is also in our conversations from the last couple of episodes. It's a 12-track album. You've got, and I love it. Nothing here is a 2.5-minute radio clip, right, man? You've got full-length tracks.
Pretty much. Yeah, I was really surprised that the first single, You Can Never Die, came in at a little over 3 minutes, and I was surprised. That's the only thing like it on the record.
It is. That's the shortest one, isn't it? Yeah.
I think there's another 3 something, almost 4. There's a couple at 4, and then there's a couple at 6 and 7. You know, but yeah. I've always written long songs. You know, I like to take you on a journey. You know,
absolutely.
Takes a little while to get into it.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's you know, personally, I'm a, you know, there's different kinds of listeners in the world. I'm more of a melody guy. You've got your lyrics, you've got the rhythm and beat folks, you know, kind of divided up. But you had a lot to say on these tracks, man. You got a lot, in my opinion, a lot going on, a lot to talk about.
Yeah, and sometimes that took a while to explain. So that takes care of the length of the songs. You know, that's why some of them got into 6-7 minutes. You know,
you got to say what's on your mind. No reason to cut it out.
Yeah, you know, and I'm also fighting the click crowd. You know, I'm seeing so many songs out nowadays that are 2 minutes long. And it's like it's over before you even get started, you know. What's there to listen to, you know?
There's not.
So, you know, and I come from that old school, man, where, you know, 6-7 minute songs was nothing, you know, growing up in the album age, you know?
Yeah. And you've got plenty of those full-length tracks. Why don't we start it off with the first one, You Can Never Die?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's, you know, man, was that the first single that you released? Was that
Yeah.
You know, you as a songwriter, you and all songwriters and all writers and poets, you have to put on your thick skin and become very vulnerable and share what's, you know, in your deepest parts of your heart and your mind. And I kind of feel, because I want to talk about what I feel from the tracks as well, but forgive me if I miss my interpretation deviates greatly from what you intended it to be. And I know
that's a good thing. That's a good thing, you know.
Good. And I know most artists appreciate it, but I wanted to throw that out there, let the listener and the enthusiast get their read on it, but it could also be completely different than what you intended.
Right. That's why I don't want to say, you know, there's a part of me that doesn't want to talk about the songs at all, you know, because they should live on their own, you know. Yeah. And I don't want to put too much in somebody's head who might be interpreting it a totally different way.
Sure.
But having said that, you know, I don't mind talking about what inspired me for the songs and, you know, how they came about and, you know, how they, you know, what was the seed that started it all and how it came about. You know, I
Yeah.
don't mind. Oh,
Okay. Cool. Well, if you don't mind doing that, then I won't mind sharing with my
not at all.
interpretation, and and we'll just go. And so, and we don't have to talk about every track this exact same way, but it seems to me "You Can Never Die" to me about afterlife, and that you can leave here, Earth, physical presence, but you can never die, and that
Yeah.
was what I was feeling from the song. And yeah, talk about a little bit about the history and the impetus for this one.
It started out, you know, it started out really bittersweet. I turned it into a positive piece. It could have really have been a dark piece, because what happened was I lost my grandmother and two uncles that I was really close to. The three of them passed like within a few weeks of each other. You know, so it was a pretty devastating time. My grandmother practically raised me. You know, I lived my whole life with her. So that was tough, you know. But one of my uncles who passed, he told his family he didn't want a funeral, he didn't want a service, he didn't want anything. He just wanted everybody to remember him like they last saw him. And you know, this uncle lived quite a ways away, so I only saw him maybe once a year or so, but we were really close. So there was always this bond, like he was always there, you know. And I was always thinking about him. And he was a really strong-willed guy. He'd tell you what was on his mind, you know, in a second. He'd tell you whatever he had to tell you. And it had a tendency to stick, you know. So I think about him all the time. Well, by not having a service after he passed, it was just like one of those times when I was in between seeing him. You know what I mean? It was like he never died. He told his family, bury my ashes, cremate me and bury my ashes around that old holly tree in the back. That's where that line, bury my ashes deep in the ground around the old holly tree. That's where that comes from. So, uh, and you know, after somebody's gone, they've lived such a great life. How can they be gone? They're not gone, you know?
Yeah.
And then since then, another thing that kind of pushed that song along, we lost Art Neville, we lost Charles Neville, which was just devastating to me. I mean, that was two people that I just loved to death, and they meant so much to me. And then a few months ago, Russell Batiste passed, drummer from the Funky Meters. He passed at 57 years old. Russell was my best friend in the whole world. I mean, we talked on the phone every day. I mean, sometimes three, four times a day. And it was tough losing him, you know. But he was so full of life. It's like, how can he be gone? He's not gone. He's just not, you know, physically here, you know. That's I don't believe the soul can die. You know, you're always some kind of energy, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Are we going to be able to top this one with the next 11?
I don't know.
I got
Oh,
to
here,
cut.
George is back.
Yeah.
George, is it possible to get the record up and play a little bit of each song as we go along?
Yeah.
Yeah, George is going to hook it up.
Okay, sweet. George was.
So we can listen to a minute of You Can Never Die, and then I'll play the next one.
Okay.
And we can move on.
And clarify for everybody watching and listening, George is the producer, engineer.
George Kiro owns Sweet Mix Studio. He's the engineer, the CEO, he cleans the bathrooms. He does everything here, and he can do it all. He mixed the record. So yeah, George is the man.
Yeah. George, no pressure, man, if you can't pull up the tracks, you know.
We can get it.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're gonna fly by the seat of our pants for a minute. What at large were you kind of playing? I mean, I know your various instruments, but what kind of talk about your overall rig? What amp were you playing into? Anything
You
that
Can Never Die.
yeah,
On that one, well, let me see what I hear. I hear my Telecaster. I have a 74. I have a 74 custom Tele that I used on that, and I also used. Bring it down. Bring it down. We'll get it up loud and then we'll bring it up. I also hear my. I had a great slide guitar, man. Kramer. Years ago, I had this Kramer endorsement, and I didn't really like most of their guitars. They were kind of hit metal guitars, and they just wasn't, the thing. But they had sent me like their copy of a Tele, and it really sounded awful on its own, but it made a great, great slide guitar. And that's the one I'm using on the solo on You Can Never Die. And like a fool, I went to Hard Rock Cafe, asked me for a guitar to put up on the wall. And like a fool, I gave him that one. So
can you get it
I
back?
should have never gave him that one.
Is it?
But
Did you sign away your soul? Like you can't get it back?
Yeah. That was so stupid. I'm actually trying to get it back. I'm trying to get in touch with him till I can trade him something else for it, So you want to hear a little bit of that?
Yeah, let's crank it up.
Just a little
How do I start it over?
Just click on that button there. It's going to start in the same spot. Click in the white part. Click in the white part.
How do I start it over? You can't just put the CD in?
Crank it.
It'll start at the top?
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you hear it?
Oh yeah, perfect.
When love wants to leave us, you can really feel the burn. Can almost see the sun shining down. They're moving me and you as the world goes round and round. Hey, you can never die. Who told you that lie? I'm here to testify, baby, you can leave here, but you can never die.
Yeah, so I'll give you an idea,
Brian, this is your upper register. Would you spend to me? You spend a lot of this album singing in your upper register, and you've got a really sweet, soft. There's more adjectives to describe your voice, but sweet and soft and very, very smooth. And this is what I find is fascinating, especially if for someone who just tuned in now and is watching this and not listening. So now they have a face with a name. It's not necessarily the voice that you expect that's going to come out of you if you've not heard you sing before, though a lot of your other music is more baritone than in the tenor range, and that I think that's pretty sweet, man. I gotta say, and I don't know if anyone's giving you that feedback or if I'm crazy. So forgive.
No. I'm kind of glad I captured all of that when I did, because I'm starting to lose some of that. The older I get, the deeper my voice gets, and when I'm singing, I'm much more comfortable in a baritone range. But I'm glad I captured that while I could.
Well, you did, man.
It may not be there forever. Things change.
It does.
Well, I had a couple of surgeries too. That I had a couple of cervical surgeries, and they go in through the throat, so you lose your voice for a while. And this last time, I wasn't sure I was going to get it back because I couldn't talk for probably a month. There was nothing coming out, and I had no falsetto. I mean, I could speak, but I couldn't sing. As soon as I'd start singing, it just cracked and turned into noise, you know. So I'm glad it came back. Although I noticed I lost some of my range this last surgery.
But it came back. That's what's most important.
It came back, yeah. As long as it comes back, I can keep going lower. I can go lower and lower, but it's just a matter of developing power in that lower range because it's not so easy sometimes. You know, it's easy to belt out at a higher range and get volume. You know, at a lower range, it's not so easy. And in the studio, it doesn't matter. You know, you can whisper in the studio, but when you get on the gig and you know, you're trying to get the band to turn down and you can't hear yourself and the monitor suck, you know.
Yeah.
Hey, you know, sometimes those lower register songs don't always come out so confidently, you know.
Your voice naturally, do you have a great voice, or are we listening to, you know, decades of development?
Great voice. Yeah, I don't know about that. You know, I started with a voice coach for a short period of time and got bored with it. So I basically just do what I can, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, it's from singing old Beatles songs, you know. That was my training.
It's from a guy that doesn't sing very well, you sound great, brother. Let me just tell you. I'm just saying.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Anytime somebody says that, because I get a lot of the opposite too. You know, I used to have people. I used to send out demos and stuff, and I'd have people tell me, "You ever thought about getting a singer?" Yeah, I said, "No, no, I don't care what it sounds like. I'm going to sing these songs." You know.
Those are always good confidence boosting.
But you know, I used to be really self-conscious about it, you know, because you know, people, you know, it only takes one person, one particular person to say the wrong thing, you know.
Yeah.
But what turned it around was I was in the studio working with Daniel Lanois one time, and I'd left the demo tape at the studio, and one of the other engineers was playing it. And Dan complimented me. Dan said, "Man, you really got something going on with your voice." And, you know, I was so happy to hear that because he's somebody who I know is really listening, you know, and they're listening on the inside. They're not listening to just the fluff. So I appreciated that. And I was able to turn my, you know, attitude around after that, you know. It meant a lot to me that he heard something, you know. And after that, I really started working on it more and, you know, became more conscious in the studio, you know.
Yeah. And I wasn't drinking when I was been listening to the album. So, you know, I can say that.
Maybe you should have been. It might have helped.
Well, let's talk about Mirror Mirror. And that was also the second single that you released, right?
Mirror Mirror was the third.
Okay.
But I'll play. You want me to play a little bit of it?
Yeah, let's go. Let's hear that funky groove. Let's go.
Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the wisest of them all? Can you reflect the truth at all? Mirror, mirror on the wall.
Yeah.
And man, and we listen on this one and the next track, One Angel. You know, you end with about 2 minutes of instrumental, and you
Yeah,
kill
you know,
it,
it's kind
man.
of deceiving hearing just a couple of minutes of it, a minute of it, because you know, this is one of the longer tracks. And this song, as you probably heard, goes into a B section that is like basically another song. It almost turns into a whole different song. And all the while guitar solo stuff trying to emulate that later Hendrix type thing, you know. Um, I always liked those records that Eddie Kramer mixed, all those Jimmy tracks that Kramer mixed after Jimmy had died. And it seemed like he had recorded just tons and tons of guitars. And when Kramer mixed those records, he just like, it seems like he left all the guitars in, you know? So there's guitars flying all over the place. And I always tried to emulate that. I think I've touched on it at least at the end of this song.
Yeah, I was gonna ask how many guitar parts are we hearing?
Actually, one, two, three, four, about five.
Okay,
Some
okay,
of them are stereo tracks, though.
okay.
So I think probably three of those five is stereo tracks. Oh, plus they had a classical guitar on it too, so there's like
Okay.
six on there. Yeah,
All right.
that
Good.
one little part that pops in and out.
My ears
Yeah.
weren't tricking me, because if you were going to tell me that there was three or less, I was going to fall on the floor.
Yeah, well, you know, sometimes they sound like more than it is. It might only be three tracks. It just sounds like more by the way you use it, you know.
Yeah, yeah,
But I think that one had five or six.
yeah.
Yeah.
What so anyone for the uninitiated, if you're just checking us out, Mirror Mirror, we get to the last 2 minutes, and the same for One Angel. You'll put it on repeat.
Yeah.
I'd say I did. So what about so this one? All right, we talked a little bit about the musicality of it, but what was the impetus for this song, for the lyrics?
You know, it was always just this, you know, mirror, mirror is an old, you know, nursery rhyme, you know, and I always had that in my head just to rewrite it and come up with those things. So there wasn't much to the mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the wisest of them all, you know, not a whole lot to that. Although it does say a lot, you know, as the verses move on, or choruses actually. But then in the B section, you know, there's like there's like four verses of just like a stream of consciousness thing. I saw a man in my dreams with articulate schemes. You know, that actually, I copped that from Bob Dylan. Because in Bob's book, Chronicles, he did a chapter on the recording of Oh Mercy in New Orleans. And in the book, he said Brian Stoltz played with articulate schemes. And he was able to play something like he was able to play piano parts on guitar. He could play James Booker on guitar, which I don't know if you know, James Booker was a great New Orleans pianist, genius piano player. So that's where that came from. And the rest of it is just a stream of consciousness thing that comments on, you know, current affairs and social society and whatever, you know.
When you read those words from Dylan, what did that mean to you?
I was shocked.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I was shocked. One, I was shocked by that book, period. You know, I always knew, of course, Bob was a great, great songwriter, probably the best. But I never knew he was a writer in that respect.
Mm.
And the book is really, really good. And that was volume one. He's never released volume two. We're still waiting for volume two. And he's put out a couple of books since then, but it's not his memoirs. So I'm waiting for more of that. Yeah, I was really surprised. He took up a whole chapter just talking about Oh Mercy. I guess because he feels like, I mean, I don't know what he's thinking, but to me, Oh Mercy didn't really get the notoriety and the respect that it deserved, because it was really one of the last great records of the 80s, It came out in 89, made the Rolling Stone top 500 or top 100 list, whatever it was. I think it was top 500 of the 80s of that decade. It's just a wonderful record, and it didn't really get the play it deserved, So maybe that's why he wrote about it. I don't know. But I just know it was surprising that he took up a whole chapter in the book talking about it.
Yeah. And you got a name drop.
Yeah, right.
What about One Angel?
One Angel, you want to hear a little bit?
Yeah, let's hear a little bit of it. Is that okay? Did I switch gears too fast?
No, man.
Okay.
I never meet anyone like I never meet you. All the years that have come and gone, leaving a look so true. With these I turn my back on anybody and true. But baby, you know there is no good turn away from a girl like you. So I wonder how many angels dance on the end of the string. Well, I only see one angel again and again.
Yeah. So that's how that one goes.
The definitely to me a love song.
Yeah, for sure. No doubt.
Did any elaboration needed, or so we were talking before we hopped on, you've been married for 47 years or almost 47?
Yeah, well, my wife moved in with me in 76. We actually got married in 79.
Okay.
But, we consider it 47 years since we've been together since 76,
Yeah. Yeah.
So, coming up on the big 50. Oh, wow.
Well, she gets a lot of love in this album. If I'm reading the tea leaves correctly.
Yeah, you're reading them right.
Good. Does she read the tea leaves the same way? Where is she?
That's a good question. That's a good question. Some people just never. She's got a poker face, man. She's got a serious poker face.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Well, we'll wait
but I think if she's still around after 47 years, something must be right.
Yeah.
I know she puts up with a lot. There's no doubt about that.
Until you give me the answer about 3 times over in this album, like, yeah, I was in trouble, so I wrote that one for my wife.
Yeah, no, I swear I wasn't in the doghouse when I wrote it. Yeah, no, it just tells the story of fidelity, story of loyalty. Hopefully it's some inspiration for another generation.
Yeah.
Because that's becoming so rare. People can't seem to stay together more than a few weeks.
Yeah.
They get tired of each other. They get impatient. So hopefully there's something there for somebody.
The beginning of that tune, or not only do I hear a mandolin in there anywhere, or is that my bad ears?
No, that's no, it's the guitars are, I've got them capoed way up.
Okay.
So I'm not sure what key. I don't remember what key I'm playing in, but I've got them capoed up like, oh man, I think capo was on like the 9th fret or something. So I'm playing way up, and then the parts are doubled, and there's actually 2 guitars playing that. So you're hearing, 2 stereo tracks. I think one was a 12-string, and one was sounds like my old Mustang that got stolen.
Okay.
And then that one there's an acoustic in there. There's a couple other guitars. I think I used that custom telly. The guitar solo on it is my Stratocaster for sure. Okay. So I guess there's around 4 or 5 guitars on that one too.
Yeah.
Even though they're not always, when I say 4, 5, 6 guitars, that doesn't mean they're all playing at the same time.
Sure.
So
yeah.
I don't want people to think that I'm bombarding them with guitars, because it's really not. It's for a guitar player's record, it's really not like a heavy, no, I guess there's a lot of guitar on it. But when you say 5, 6 guitars, that sounds like a lot. It doesn't really sound like that.
It doesn't. It does. But you do those last couple minutes on this one, man. You play.
Yeah, but at the end of this one, it goes into that thing where we recorded it. The band recorded it live, and when it got to the end, it just kept going, and we took off, and it was so good. I edited some of it out. I may release an extended version later that goes on even longer. But for now, I just wanted to give a hint of it. But yeah, it kind of reminded me of, you don't hear stuff like that anymore. It kind of reminded me of the Who a little bit. It goes into a thing that it was just reminiscent of the Who.
Yeah.
And like a groove and a sound that you just don't hear anymore. I tried to do that as much as I could with this record, touch on the things that you don't hear anymore. I grew up on and don't really hear anymore,
Well,
nobody uses guitars anymore, Pop music has just totally, killed the guitar,
Yeah. That's we didn't talk about this in one of our others, and though you played in some disco bands, I was in a talk at this thing, man, and it was Bob Taylor, and he said of Taylor guitars, and he said the day the music died was the day John Travolta showed his face in Saturday Night Fever, man. And
I guess there's some truth to that.
And he said, you know what? Forgive me, I'll go here for 1 second because this is fascinating. He said that they were making, I think, 9 guitars a week or 9 guitars a day at that point. I don't recall. And it dried up and they went down to 3 or 4. And he said Martin at that time it must have been per day. Martin was making low 30s of guitars a day, and they dropped down to 9. So wow. Taylor dropped by about half. Martin dropped by, they dropped down to just 1/3 of their volume. But I'm in the flesh, 30 feet away from me. He's like, that was the day the music died. John Travolta came out with it. Your point of guitars not being used as much anymore. Well, that's One Angel's a great tune, and I'm glad you let it flow, that you kept the flow on with the band, because man, it's a real treat. It's a real treat.
Yeah, it really rocks at the end, no doubt.
Yes. The next track, All That Binds. Man, you got some good lyrics in this one. I'll let you if you can surf over there and hit play.
You want to hear it?
a painful thing to watch the years go slipping by toward the day those church bells ring. Struggling with the facts of life, the birds fly free all day. Yesterday's gone, tomorrow's far off, and the moments where I need to stay. We live on through the love we leave behind. We live on through all that times.
Yeah. That's one of them that goes on for a good 7 minutes or something.
That the whole mood changes, man. That's a really somber, reflective song. And I mean, it's the spiral down at the end of life can be such a beautiful thing. I love that lyric, man. Like, you know, it's like I need a minute to process before we start talking about this.
Yeah, that's on the last verse. The first verse can be such a painful thing.
Yes. Yep.
I sang this song at my mother's funeral.
Mm.
My mother was not doing well. She was about to pass. I went and saw her one day at the nursing home and came home and wrote this song, you know, because I knew it was close, you know. And I don't know how I did it, but I did it. I sang it at the funeral. I don't know how I made it through. So yeah, this song's a little deeper than most.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, thank you for sharing the context.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was great to record though. Band played great on it. This one, I'm using my acoustic, which was one of them that got stolen, unfortunately. It was a 68 Gibson Dove. Really beautiful guitar. I hope somebody's enjoying it wherever it's at. And I hear the Stratocaster on there. I hear that custom telly. And yeah, I think I just used those three. This one isn't, there's not tons of guitars on this one.
Yeah, let the lyrics speak.
Yeah. It's a little more open. Got that kind of country feel, you know. But yeah, this one was tough to record, but we got through it.
Well, I'm glad that you did. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, man. Do what? Do you want to go on to the next one? Sorry, I'm just. I mean, it's a beautiful song, Brian, and it's heavy and it's deep. And I've already shared with you. You know, my favorite is the last track, and it kind of leaves me speechless. I think this one is kind of the same, so I don't want to keep running my mouth.
Yeah, no, not at all. But what came next? What's after All That Binds?
Nature smiles on it all.
Oh, okay. That's another one that's kind of in a country vein. Let me play a little bit.
Okay.
She was was so pretty. And oh, what a pity. The time was not on our side. Whispers endearing, lips searing, good thing I took it in stride. She had a lover, and I had a mother. Angels sang us a song. Dreams can be daring when souls are pairing. Nature smiles on it all. I saw her that morning.
And that's how that one goes.
And that's with Shannon McNally.
Yeah, it's featuring Shannon McNally on vocal.
Yeah.
Yeah, she did a great job. I'm really enjoying the song.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's kind of, I wanted something that touched on that old classic country thing. I hear so much country music nowadays that I can't really listen to. And it's nothing like, the country music I grew up on, So I wanted something that kind of reminded me of that, something that reminded me of them old Patsy Cline records and, Loretta Lynn and things like that, And the story, it's just a typical story. People meet, you might be spoken for, but you're still a man, you're still a woman. Nature smiles on it all,
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just a story that came in my head somehow, and I don't know, it must have been something I saw in a movie or something I saw somewhere, and it just little by little, the story grew,
Yeah. Yeah. That wandering heart, like you said.
Yeah.
Nature.
and it's all in how you react, it's all in your actions and how you react to those things,
Yeah. It does have that good, the old country vibe. It reminds me of a tune. I can't think of the name of that's not old country, but by an older soul country singer, which is Jamie Johnson. But I can't remember the name of the track. At any rate, I'll piggyback on you talking about new country for a second, deviating from the song and how I'm with you. It's hard to listen to some of this stuff. I saw Alan Jackson in concert 7-8 years ago at Merle Fest, which is a big festival in Western North Carolina, about 45 minutes from my house. And he grew, Alan grew up in Noonan, Georgia, which we used to stop at Noonan on the way from Atlanta to Montgomery to see family. There's a little barbecue joint there called Sprayberries, and world famous little barbecue joint in Noonan. But Alan said, man, he said all these new country singers singing about a dirt road. He's like, well, man, let me tell you, I grew up on a dirt road, and I sure as hell was happy when it got paved, man. And basically dropped the mic.
Yeah. I've played Merle Fest before, by the way.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
I may have seen you.
But it's true. When you listen to old classic country songs, they were telling stories that really happened. They were talking about their life. There was no difference between that and the old Delta blues songs, They were telling stories about what they went through on a daily basis, Nowadays, if you hear a country song, on the radio, a new country song, I guarantee you it was written by some bunch of writers in a room that had an idea, and none of it was, and not much of it was, lived,
Yeah.
I don't want to say all of it, because I know some great Nashville songwriters that write about their experiences and they write great songs. But for the most part, when you're hearing about tailgates and rocking chairs on the porch and, get out of here, man. Get out of here with shit. That shit gives me a rash.
Oh man, there's no heart, there's no heart and there's no soul, and it's all forgettable. But excuse me for deviating for a second, because don't get you and I started. We might be here for a minute.
Yeah, I don't want to completely trash it either, because there's a lot of people I really like,
Sure.
Ashley Monroe, and I listen to a lot of different things, so I'm good at picking out the diamonds in the rough, so there's still a lot of great stuff there too,
There is,
but it's getting harder and harder to pick through,
There you go. Yes. Well, the next track number 6 is Reach for the Sky.
Wait, before you don't mind, one thing I just wanted to point out was on Nature Smiles on It All, that main guitar is another one that got stolen. And it was the 1938 Gibson ES 150. And one of the first electric guitars made, it had that Charlie Christian pickup on it.
Yeah.
Just a phenomenal guitar. And yeah, it got stolen. So I really missed that sound. I don't have that sound anymore, I've been looking around, maybe see about getting another one. But that one just had a beautiful tone, and it's just such a big, fat sound that you don't really hear on records anymore,
Yeah. The got a little experience with a 36 EH 150, with the same pickup, but the lap steel.
Yeah.
Man, mate. Hey, you're probably got a little Pied Piper of guitars in you. It may still come back around, man.
Yeah, who knows? You
never know.
Who knows?
Is it all right? I'm glad you stopped me in pointed that out. And that has that guitar has a very special place in your family and in your heart on top of that.
Yeah, well, also, it was it had been in my family since 1938. One of my uncles, matter of fact, one of them that I talk about that passed, and I talk about in the song "You Can Never Die," he gave me that guitar back in the 80s sometimes. He had it. It was a graduation. It was a high school graduation present that his folks gave him in 1938. And he mainly played piano. So, that's the line about him is when I hear that old piano play that same old tune, that was an homage to him. But so he didn't really play the guitar anymore. So he gave it to me and just made me promise that I'd never sell it, that I'd always keep it in the family, So it was really hurt that one got stolen. If there's anything I'd want back, it would be that, Yeah. And also all of these songs, I think just about every song, I basically only used one amp. It was one of the custom built O'Brien amps built by Tim O'Brien from Minneapolis. I had a custom built 100-watt head and a 50-watt head. The 50-watt head had a half switch on it, so I could get it down to 25 watts. So I used it mainly in the studio. I think I used that on every song on this record. And I think the only other thing I used on it was maybe a little Buddha 30-watt combo. But for the most part, it was the 50-watt O'Brien head with a 212 O'Brien cabinet. Either a 212 or a 410. I had both of them here. So one of them, they made it on particular songs.
Those were stolen as well. The O'Briens, is that right too? Yeah.
Both heads in their cases.
All right, let's talk about
They took them out the cases. They left the cases behind. That's how stupid they were. They left the case. Here's the amp in a beautiful flight case. They left the flight cases and stole the amps. They also stole a Marshall cabinet that was so stupid because I'd have paid them to take that thing out of here. I'd have paid them to carry that off. So I'm kind of glad that one left my possession.
A little silver
lining. It was like
lining.
a boat anchor, man. I've never used it. I'm not carrying a Marshall cabinet. If I need a Marshall cabinet, I'll have backline provided, But no, going back to those O'Brien amps, I got to tell you, the
Sure.
50 watt was great in the studio, but it was just the most killer live amp, because it was a loud 50 watts, And if you used two cabinets, you could get it down to 4 ohms. Man, it was just headroom for days. It was a great funky meter amp, great amp to use with funky meters. And the 100 watt that he built me, the 100 watt, Tim had one of Hendrix's 200 watt Marshall Majors.
Wow.
He, I think he said a guy brought it in the store. He had a music store. A guy brought it in. He was looking to trade it for some speakers, and he said it didn't work. So Tim gave him some speakers, and he opened up the Marshall. He said he plugged it up and it played fine. There was nothing wrong with it. So I don't know what the guy was doing wrong, but he couldn't get it to play. And so Tim kind of used that amp to model my 100 watt. Although, you couldn't get those big transformers, so it didn't have that huge transformer like a Marshall Major had. But it was such a killer amp, and it was so loud. I had the thing for almost 10 years, and I used it 3 times. And I remember using it on Voodoo Fest, and I used it on 2 Jazz Fest shows in New Orleans, and it was overkill for the Jazz Fest stage. It was perfect for the Voodoo Fest stage. But yeah, that head with 2 412 Marshall cabinets and getting it down to 8 ohms, it was just a phenomenal. I remember coming off the stage after that Voodoo Fest show, and there was a line of kids, like a big group of kids waiting around wanting to know what kind of amp is that? What is that? It was just crushing out front. They just couldn't get over the sound of it because it was such a huge sound. It was really the greatest amp I ever had in my life.
That's so cool.
Those 2 Tim O'Brien amps, they were the best by far.
Well, I'm glad we ended that story on an uplifting note. Yeah. Let's talk about Reach for the Sky for a minute.
Yeah.
This was man, this is a really spiritual tune the vibe that I picked up on. It had kind of has a real tribal vibe to it, is the way I would describe it. And just I love the optimism. It's optimism for love and for peace, and not focused on things of the world, worldly possessions, material goods. That's what I was feeling when I was listening to it, man.
I wrote that song. I was actually on a retreat at an ashram up in Pennsylvania. I was at the Himalayan Institute in Honesdale, Pennsylvania. I was there on a retreat for a couple of weeks. And yeah, that song just kind of came to me one night. It just kind of came all at one time, actually. So it was easy. I love when that happens. That don't happen so often, but I love when it does. So yeah, it came quick. I came home, I demoed it, and then I decided to record it for this record. So it's recorded. There's no drum kit on it. I used all hand percussion. So I have a I don't have it here. I left them at home, but I have this great drum. It was made by Hopi Indians. I bought it in Colorado.
Yeah.
It was made by Hopi Indians tribe, and it's a clay drum, about a 10 or 12 inch head on it, cow skin. And it kind of reminds me of a djembe. It's got a djembe tone on the top, and even the bottom, you can mic it on the bottom and get huge low end. So it's in a lot of ways, for such a small drum, it's maybe 12 inches tall. It really has the tone of a big djembe, Yeah. So I use that, and I have a pair of Moroccan little pair of hand drums. Kind of best way I can describe them is kind of like bongos, except the smaller drum is smaller. It's only maybe 3 inches circumference. The larger drum is maybe 5 or 6 inches, and it's just they just have great tone. And if you can, I always try to record with them in the fall, because when the weather dries up, they have an incredible tone. They ping, they ring, they just have a great sound. When the summer months come in and humidity gets thick, they totally lose it. It's just a flat, dead tone, which is actually kind of good too. I like that too. But they're great to record in the fall when the weather dries up and the low humidity. They just have a wonderful tone. So I use those two. Those two drums are the main drums in that song. Yeah.
You want to pop it on? We'll hear a little bit of it.
Yeah.
And while you're doing that, I'll say I didn't know the weather. I didn't know the humidity dried up in Louisiana ever.
Oh yeah, in the fall, man, it gets nice in the fall. It's beautiful.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Reach for the sky, reach out today. I wait for the moment that love comes my way. Look to the moon, pray for the day. I wait for the moment that peace comes our way. Where there is longing, there is pain. Called out to every form and name. Without fear, without hate. Where only love reigns. The treasures we see that lie in this world are measured in diamonds and gold and jewels. I gaze at the stars for what will stay true. I keep in my heart what faith lies in you.
Yeah.
That's good, man.
Yeah, I just remember too. Also, when I wrote this song, a friend of mine up at Himalayan Institute had given me this CD of African music, and I kind of had been listening to it all week long. So I guess that's why that came out like that. I was inspired by all this West African music that they gave me. It was a CD of a lot of different. It was a various artists record of all West African artists.
It worked beautifully.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it worked out good.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, because I can't imagine that song with like a drum kit and like a traditional rock arrangement or anything. It came out like it came out.
Yeah.
And again, that main guitar, another one that got stolen. That was a '67 Mustang, Fender Mustang, that I just loved. I loved that guitar because it had that little innocent tone. You can't get that. You can't get that anywhere else. The Mustang and the Fender Duosonic is really like the only two guitars that have that tone, you know. So that's another one I'm thinking about. I've been looking around, see if I can find another one.
All right. We can put in our show notes, man. Give me a description, like, hey, if you see one of these things on a Reverb or a pawn shop, you know, call this number.
Well, I remember when, you know, the one I had there, I bought that guitar. I bought it sometime in the 80s, late 80s. I bought it in Houston at some used store. And I think I paid $150 for it. You know, they're like $2,000 now, you know, $2,500 when you go looking for one now. Or if it's a 67, it might be in the threes, you know. So, you know, the price has seriously gone up.
Yeah, and that's as cheap as you're going to get a 67 Fender, no matter what style, you know.
Yeah.
Man. Well, you got some good use out of it for your $150 at least.
Yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, I have it on a lot of songs over the years, and it's on a lot of stuff. But I miss it. Yeah, I really miss that tone.
Yeah. All right, we interrupt this broadcast. We're going to pause it here for essentially episode 3, but it's going to be part 1 of 2 parts for the finale, looking at the album. So we just got done recording. We ran almost 2 hours, so we decided we would break that into 2 episodes, with the first episode going through the first six tracks of the album, and the next one will be the next 6. So bear with us, hold that thought. And if you want to, we'd love for you to hang out, of course, and join us on the next 6. That's going to be in the next version, and we'll call that one part 4. So look for that on the podcast, or look for that on YouTube. Brian, you're looking good over there. Anything I need to add?
No, man, just thanks so much. Thanks again.
Thanks everybody for watching.
Thanks everybody for being patient with us and listening to the songs. And yeah, we look forward to having you back for the second half of the album.
And if I could say, I don't know, the second half may be better than the first half. So if you've enjoyed this one, or if you haven't, you're in for a treat.
It'll be different. It'll be different.
All right, everybody. We'll see you on the next one.
Thanks, David.
Thank you. Thanks for tuning in to the Guitar Gavel podcast, and a special thanks to Steve Kuykendall for composing this music and being such the great guy and friend that you are. As a reminder, hit the subscribe button and sign up for our twice weekly newsletter at guitargavel.com.